Rage is a strange one. On one hand, it's really, really good. On the other hand, it's a massive disappointment. No, that makes no sense. Let me start over. What Rage does do, it does really, really well. But what it doesn't do is a massive disappointment. Most of the time in Rage, you're either shooting or you're driving. Sometimes both. The shooting is great. I mean, it's an id Software game. Of course the shooting's great. The guns look brilliant, they sound amazing, and the various horrors of the wasteland all react in a realistic way when you shoot them. Except for surviving the occasional headshot. Also, the artificial intelligence for your enemies is actually pretty good. They dive, they dodge, they take cover, and they run away in a fairly realistic manner. They don't tend to think strategically, so you're not at any risk of being flanked, but the arenas aren't really designed for that. They're more designed for frantic action. Plus, roving bands of wasteland cannibals probably aren't running combat drills in their spare time. That being said, the shooting is surprisingly varied, and it lets you adapt your tactics to suit your own style of play. Do you like to pick them off from a distance? Great. Get yourself a pistol, a monocle, and a whole bunch of fat boys. Would you rather get up close and personal? Cool. Toss a grenade and then rush them with the shotgun. As well as this, some of the boss encounters are pretty cool, whether you're watching your heart rate spike as you fend off endless hordes of mutants, or you think, that's pretty cool, and also I'm about to fucking die, when you try to fight off a skyscraper-sized mutant by firing rockets into its brain. The driving, while less important, is actually pretty decent. Forza has nothing to worry about, obviously, but the cars do have some fun arcadey handling, and the few races that you are forced to take part in are actually kind of fun. They don't feel like much of a chore. Now, driving to and from missions does feel kind of pointless. They may as well have just put in a loading screen. Thankfully, you can avoid random bandit attacks by driving away with relative ease if you just can't be bothered doing them. What Rage also excels at is its visual design. And weirdly, that's kind of a shame. See, there's so many great little details. There's a lot of brilliant environmental storytelling that tells you how the world works after it gets scalped by a giant asteroid. But in the wider context of the game and the world that it's built, it kind of feels squandered. Take the towns that act as hubs for the various missions you can go on. There are so many brilliant little touches that detail how a new society was built on the ruins of an old one, just so humanity could survive. I would genuinely go and drink in a bar that someone had built inside a disused subway car. This place looks cracking. The trouble is, then you head out into the wasteland and it's empty, and not just in a desolate way. Think of Fallout 3 or Fallout 4. You can walk the length and breadth of those maps on foot and frequently find something interesting to see or do. By comparison, Rage's Wasteland has nothing in it, and I'm doing this in 2021. I've been through 3 lockdowns. I know what a vast expanse of fuck all looks like. And once you've gone through the vastly boring wasteland to get to the mission that you're meant to do, a lot of the environments seem generic. Another basement, another power plant, another sewer. The only mission environments I actually found interesting were the Dead City Hospital and the Blue Subway Line, because they provided a great visual snapshot of what life was like right before God yeeted a massive stone into the planet's face. The visual design of the characters also suffers from a similar problem. I mean, they look great, they're individual, they're distinct, they're visually really well thought out, but they only exist to give you missions or exposition. Apart from one exception, they don't actually come out and do the missions with you, so nothing you do actually affects them in any way, and there's no reason to really get attached to them, especially because halfway through you skip town and the entire cast of characters just gets replaced. And what's worse, that's not even the biggest problem with the characters in this game. The biggest problem is that your main antagonists, the brutal dystopian shadow government known as the Authority, they may as well not even exist. Just like all governments then. Seriously though, for all that everybody in the freewheeling outlaw wasteland fears the Authority and tells you to avoid them and doesn't want anything to do with them, they don't actually seem to do or affect anything. So many characters will tell you just how bad the Authority is, but you never actually see why. And for all they're meant to be hunting you down specifically because you crawled out your cryogenic changing room, you could spend years in the first half of the game just driving around the wasteland, scalping bandits, and never see a single trace of them. I genuinely don't get why anybody wants to take them down, because they do fuck all. They only turn up in any meaningful way for the last 2 missions, and the last mission is one of the most underwhelming conclusions to a game I've ever played. It's some short, repetitive shooting matches in some generic sci-fi corridors that someone clearly bought off Wish.com. Rage is a good game, but it's also a sad and disappointing one. It plays well, it's nice to look at, but it's always going to live in the shadow of what it doesn't deliver. Even removed from all the pre-release hype about how it was going to have a big open world and interesting characters and an engaging storyline, there's still a huge hole of wasted potential. And yet, technically, it is good, and it is worth playing, especially because right now it probably costs less than a bag of chips. So if you are going to try it, do yourself a favour. Take a step back, switch off your brain and judge it solely on what's put in front of you. And then you're probably going to have a really good time.